Good afternoon. It's 103rd day of Ukrainian resistance. Here is Medіацентру Ukraine, and our next guest is Anna Derevyanko, Executive Director of the European Business Association. We will speak about the war and about the economy. We will also speak about business and about how all the things are interrelated. Anna, welcome. Good afternoon. We have read your research on business. Please, probably you could tell us a couple of words about your assessment of the condition of Ukrainian business as for now. Well, the situation is really not that simple for business, and we have been doing this research since the first days of the war to understand how the modes in the business community are changing, what the barriers are, what the losses of business are, how business companies treat their staff, and we can see the following trend: business is recovering, is adjusting, and of course, not everyone is finding its way, but the majority are still recovering their activity. And that is in general, and then we could go into figures. And please, getting back to figures, could you tell that there are some clusters of fields of the economy that are on the rise, or some that have really decreased their amounts of activity? Well, as far as the losses are concerned, it seems to me that every sector has had losses, because it has often been the case that some companies were going upwards and they were neutral to any decisions or any changes in the regulatory field in Ukraine. But so far, we can see that war has really affected everyone. Well, probably some companies have faced less severe losses, some more severe losses, but even IT companies are complaining that they are facing the risks of losing contracts because some of their staff members are in the Ukrainian territory. And for their clients, of course, it's important that stability and safety are ensured. That's why IT companies are seemingly in a better situation than other sectors, but nevertheless, they have faced some losses. Other sectors are distinguished depending on their geography, whether it was in the area of hostilities or not. Because even if business could keep working and has some production sites that could produce the output that could be in high demand, nevertheless, if the production sites have been destroyed, business will not be able to work the way it should. But if companies are located close to the area of hostilities or have not been seriously affected by the war, have not faced any serious destructions in their production sites or the areas where they produce their output or render services, they have started recovering. They keep working, but one of the things that is a matter of concern for everyone is the purchasing power of residents, which is in any way going down. Let's probably speak about different incentives, stimulating factors, like the rise in the accounting rate. What will it lead to? Well, I think that it will lead to the fact that credit resources will become more expensive, but on the other hand, it will make deposits more attractive, since now deposits used to be at a very low level. But again, business needs cash or non-cash, any financial assets to recover and to restore its business processes. Currently, we can see that the economy lacks money, lacks cash and non-cash assets. And even if we have some communication with businesses and I ask businesses what they need from the state, maybe some support could be provided to you, they normally claim that on the one hand, the government should not obstruct their activity, which is something we are accustomed to. But on the other way, they claim that economy should be invested into in order for it to face a new cycle. The situation is really difficult and tough, not just in business, but in the state in general, and nobody demands kind of huge support from the state. Vice versa, business is really appreciating what the authorities are now doing to keep the state at the current level and to protect the state. But nevertheless, business needs to know when economic recovery programs will be launched, because 67% of our respondents have mentioned that they are interested in different recovery programs in our state. And along with that, it is very difficult for business to retain its staff members, since quite often people go to the army, but business has to keep their salaries and to pay their salaries. So people are not working, but salaries have to be paid. And that creates an additional load, an additional burden for business. So definitely business needs recovery of the economy, needs money, financial assets. We are all looking forward to getting not just Ukrainian money, but foreign assets from different stakeholders to have different recovery processes launched. But we also realize that this is a time-consuming procedure, and for example, candidacy for the European Union could be a really important signal for the development of our state. We are looking forward to getting this candidate status, because potentially it could open the way to additional assets, additional finance that we need badly to develop our economy and to recover business. What about cancellation of duties? What its effect? Did it settle the problem, or did it become a challenge for Ukrainian producers? What is your assessment of the situation? We have always been supporting free market. European Business Association has always been supporting free competition. For some people, it's a disadvantage. For some, it's an advantage. There are no things that would be ideal for everyone. So as far as cancellation of duties is concerned, it's an incentive for liberalization of the economy and trade, which is a great advantage. And by the way, a lot of producers have been asking for such things, for cancellation of duties. And we've got this liberalization, which seems to me a great step forward. But definitely, some businesses which are not that much ready for free competition and free trade could uh, face it as a challenge. But I hope that we will have the minority of such businesses. The economy will not work until investment is made into it. You have mentioned it yourself. But Western companies are definitely not ready to invest into Ukraine now. When are they going to be ready? When could we expect the inflow of investment? Well, everybody is waiting for the end of the war. That's logical, because money likes silence, and investment now is being made into the sectors where it's impossible to live without them. And during our communication with the representatives of the largest Ukrainian businesses, I asked them whether they are ready to invest money during the war. And they gave me a frank answer that they are not. So the investment is made only in the amount to keep the production side going and to produce some output. But huge money, huge investment will come only after Ukraine gets victory. That's why it's really important to trust our armed forces, to support the armed forces, and this is what business and our community in general and our nation in general are doing, because we really trust that the armed forces will win and we will get peace. And when peace comes and when there are guarantees of security, investment will come. Without this, it's going to be really difficult to get investment, and it would be premature to expect investment now, because that could be lost investment. You know, a missile comes, hits their facility, or there are hostilities, and this is money in vain. So why should we invest into something that could be destroyed? Business is practical. We all trust in our victory. We are all patriots. Foreigners are also those who believe in the victory, but the investment will come only after some guarantees of security come, or after the victory. Of course, business claims that we could invest if there is some insurance or there are some security guarantees for investment. If this happens, if such mechanisms are found and are in place, even in such conditions, money could possibly be coming, but we need to find a formula for the investment to be coming. And it's important for us to learn from the experience of Israel, from what they are doing, because they have this ongoing military process and there are great risks there. But nevertheless, the economy is developing in a rather good way. So I think that we need to learn what we could do in order to attract investment even in such conditions when the external risks are always there. It seems to me that everyone has come to realize that our neighbor is really unstable and those external risks could um, appear in the future as well. There could be complications in our relationship. So everyone realizes that we should take this risk into account. So for business, it's important to have security guarantees that will allow businesses to make investment necessary for the development of business. Security guarantees are the prerogative of the state. So what is your assessment of the state support, and what could ideal state support be like? Well, ideal. It seems to me that ideal support does not exist, and our respondents, so to be more specific, 92% of respondents claim that they have not been using any state support for business. It's important to have clear rules of the game, clear rules of business activity. These should be liberal rules, and definitely business claims that they need the judiciary. Well, I would say that the spectrum of the issues the business needs is the same as it used to be before the war. Not a lot of things have changed. The only thing additionally added to is this burden of military aggression. And we realize in business that now the state has rather coordinated its activity, and business was really impressed the way the state authorities managed to react to the situation, keeping some macroeconomic stability, keeping this strike rebuffing, and nobody in business could actually expect that this sort of military aggression could happen. And when we communicated before the war, even 2 or 3 days before the war, nobody could even expect such a thing happening in such a scale, which we can now see. So taking this into account, I think that a lot of people were in the authorities were also frustrated with the scope of intervention, but they grouped in a very good way. And I think that just not many countries in the world can be ready for such sort of indecent strikes from the outside. I don't mean that our authorities are ideal. It seems to me there are no ideal things in any place of the world. There are some pros and cons in everything. But in general, the business is assessing the actions of the authorities in a very good way, very positively. Well, of course, um, we have humanitarian aid, we have recovery of logistic chains. We could take this into account and criticize, but nevertheless, in the shocking situation, the authorities are still coping with this situation. Well, come on, this is 103rd day of the war with such great losses, but nevertheless, our situation is rather good because business keeps working, logistics keeps working, all the systems, the state systems keep working, and this is a really great thing. So a great respect and a gratitude should be paid to our authorities and to the whole community, society, because we can see that people are really striving to help each other in the community, to support each other. That has never been a case. So it seems to me that step by step we will, first of all, reach our victory, because this is the key thing, and then we will need to speak about the things mentioned by business even before the war. I mean, the rule of law, reliable security guarantees, and non-bureaucratic regulatory climate ecosystem. When Ukrainians were left abroad, they can see that our country still has a lot of advantages which were not noticed while we were living in the country. But now, when we have lived for a certain period of time in other hosting countries, we are grateful to them, but we can see that our state has a lot of things to be proud of, like great digital services, freedom, and a lot of things that are here in place for us to be happy. So ideal state and ideal authorities, like you have called them, should just keep grouping, uniting all of us together for people to launch business in the state, to create incentives for the Ukrainians who have left to go back to Ukraine after the war. And the conditions created in the regulatory environment will keep supporting the ecosystem of our Ukraine on its way to prosperity after the war, when victory is ours. And the last question, a little bit missionary, but at the same time practical. What about the profile of the Ukrainian economy? How is it changing now? Because, no metallurgy, logistics of ports has changed. And what is the Ukrainian economy going to be like after the war? According to your assessment, what is going to grow, what is going to develop, and what are going to be, and what things are going to be in the focus of attention? Well, military and defense complex is going to develop because we've realized that the state could be protected only when it has a strong army and a good military and defense complex. So I think that the state already realizes this. In this context, it's already taking steps to support its military and defense complex. And I think that after the victory, this will also be in the focus of attention. The IT field is something we need now, and we will need further on. That's why it will keep growing. And generally, after the war, well, both now and after the war, everybody needs food. So I think that agriculture will also be developing. The only thing is that everybody realizes that the processing chain should be extended for us to export not raw materials, but for us to export finished commodities. Of course, machine building, machine engineering, infrastructure, construction will develop because after the war we will need great pace of construction because the pace of recovery of our state should really be impressive. So these are the sectors that will be the key ones, and then all the other things will follow them because some services will be added. Financial sector will develop. And in fact, if Ukraine or when Ukraine wins, there will be plenty of opportunities for the development of our state. And I think that we will have international support, financial support will come. And I think that now we already have a lot of ideas at the state level as far as recovery of our state after the victory is concerned. So I think that closer to the victory, it will become more understandable what our economy will look like. But the guidelines have already been laid down, and these are the ones I mentioned. Thank you. This has been Anna Derevyanko, Executive Director of the European Business Association. We have been talking about business, about victorious business, and about what business is going to do after our victory. At 1 o'clock, we are going to have a briefing with Vsevolod Chuntsov, out of the mission of Ukraine to the European Union, we will talk about sanctions.